All right. Hello, hello. Wait, it's not on. Hello. All right. Can you hear me? Hello, hello. This is trying some music to this time. Background music. Let's see. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live stream that we conduct almost every Friday here at Hummingbot. My name is Michael. I'm one of the founders of Hummingbot, and Hummingbot is an open source project that helps you build and run trading bots. Basically, any type of automated process that runs primarily on crypto exchanges, but there are people who build connectors to all types of exchanges, and there's probably non-crypto ones out there as well. Welcome to everyone in the community. Hi, I see everyone. I see folks joining our live stream on YouTube. There's a few folks watching now. So as always, this is a work in progress type of thing. We try to demo things that we're working on in the latest releases of Hummingbot. And today I'm going to go over the new architecture that we have for Gateway, the DEX middleware. So over the past few months, we've been taking a hard look at how this component works, and I'm glad to finally finish the refactor and kind of start to present what that new architecture looks like and what you can do with Hummingbot and Gateway. As a reminder, we actually just released version 2.7 yesterday. And 2.7 actually marks a really big introduction, a really big change in Hummingbot. So instead of just a simple bot, now we also ship a Hummingbot API that allows you to basically deploy and manage bots as well as individual trading operations. And you can think of it as almost like a private custom trading system that you can deploy and interact with. And so there's a if you want to understand how it works, we have a documentation called Hummingbot API here in the docs that explains how it works with installation and a quick start guide. But there's also a YouTube video series that our CTO Fede just released overnight. So this is brand new, and there's 8 videos here that explain how it works. So hopefully this gives you this will give you guys a really simple and easy introduction and basically how to deploy this new very powerful system that we have developed. But you can think of it, this is basically kind of like a production grade, professional order and execution management system that you can launch and you can basically interact with using kind of the API directly, the Python client, or the new dashboard, which has been updated to utilize this API in presenting a graphical interface for your trading operations. So yeah, lots of exciting stuff. So that's being launched. That was actually launched yesterday in version 2.7. And so what I'm working on is really what's going to come in 2.8, which is kind of like the update to the Gateway middleware. And I think it should also plug into this system once we kind of like have it finished. Awesome. Well, and also obviously, yeah, of course, Fede, as Fede mentioned, it's been a great week to be in crypto. GM to all of you bag holders out there. As a big Ethereum and Solana holder, the last couple of weeks have been pretty good for me. But obviously, I think that marks go up, marks go down, and the role of us here at Hummingbot is not to bet on prices, but instead to help people build trading systems that can basically do whatever they want and implement whatever strategy they might want to implement. So okay, so let's get to it. Let me kind of go back to the this presentation that Claude helpfully helped me create. And so let me kind of explain kind of the role of Gateway first, and then we'll dive into a live demo, and I'll show you exactly kind of the code that I've been writing right now. So just to reorient everyone, let me just show you is the Hummingbot repo, and then we have another repo for Gateway. Right now we just released the main and the master branches of each. So yeah, this was just published 4 days ago. This is also 4 days ago. And the branch that I'm working on right now is the 2.8 branch. So it would be let's see, it's called Feet Gateway 2.8 over here, and then there's also a Gateway 2.8 here. So yeah, I'll show you how to kind of install and set up these branches later on in Terminal. But let me kind of give you a high-level overview of why we have these two modules and the role they serve, and how they're being refactored in version 2.8. Okay, well, by the way, let me just pause here, and I am going to open up my Discord and make sure there's the people actually know where we are and that they can answer questions. Give me 1 second. The YouTube chat. Okay, all right. Okay, I posted a note on Discord. Let me get a sip of coffee. These live streams are always a little bit, kind of tricky, because I feel like they're kind of halfway between a real demo and something that you kind of want to be a bit more off the cuff on. So I'm never sure like how to approach these things. Like should it be a super formal, or just like I guess how I normally am. But still trying to find a balance. But anyway, so the main thing I want to cover today was kind of just really go over and kind of like create some content to explain like the thought process behind how we're doing the separation and why I think this kind of makes sense going forward as opposed to what we had in the past. So yeah, okay. So basically, the whole idea behind Gateway and Hummingbot is that Hummingbot is first and foremost a Python code base. And ideally, you want to do everything possible in Python. However, there are certain things that you want to kind of like push into a different module. And especially when those things kind of like require you to use a different language like TypeScript. And I'll explain one of the primary motivations for Gateway comes from the fact that many DEXs, kind of because they kind of cater to web-based developers, they write for kind of web-based UIs. A lot of their DEX SDKs are TypeScript first, and because of that, if you want to kind of like use that SDK to properly help you interact with the smart contracts, then it's hard to avoid having some TypeScript in your flow. Okay, so as mentioned, yeah. But of course, you don't want to have two systems, right? Like the idea of Hummingbot is not only what helps you connect to exchanges, but it's also manages your orders and your trades for you. Because when you a lot of the tricky part about interacting with crypto exchanges, whether it's a SEX or on a DEX, is that sometimes when you send an order, you don't know whether the order is going to land or not. So you have to kind of watch that order, make sure you track it when it's in flight, which is from the time that your machine sends a request to the time that request is actually accepted by the exchange's server or by the node and propagated to the DEX in the case of a DEX. So it's kind of like you want a system to manage a state of how that order is sent, and then once that order is confirmed or failed, you want to register that in your trades database, for example, if it succeeded, so you can have a history of all your trades. So that's basically kind of like this. Essentially, it's an execution and order management system, in addition to the SEX connectors that it maintains to Binance and so forth. Note that we also include Cloud DEXs in Hummingbot, especially ones like Hyperliquid. Why? Because they're very SEX-like in that the way that they interact with the API. There's a native WebSocket connection you can connect to, and you can basically stream that data in the same way you could with a SEX. So that's why we do the Cloud DEXs through Hummingbot. However, for DEXs like, let's say, Uniswap, Radium, as well as the DEX aggregators like Jupiter, they kind of require a different approach. Number one, it's an entirely different market model, right? So order books are, order books are order books. You place limit orders. The limit order is basically an option to, that's it's basically takeable, and it basically expresses your willingness to buy or sell at a certain price. On AMMs, you deposit liquidity into these DEXs in basically in pools, and when you swap versus a pool, because you're basically kind of basically swapping unit A for unit B, there's really no concept of kind of like market orders versus limit orders. Basically everything, unless you add some code on top, is a market order. So I think those differences kind of like imply that you should take a different approach, and that's kind of why the way we have it right now is Hummingbot. It should be responsible for everything related to the tracking of orders, the storing of the trades after you've been executed them, and kind of like just managing everything related to persisting state. Meanwhile, Gateway, because you don't want it to have to do everything, it should not manage state. Ideally, it should be as stateless as possible and simply provide the interface that you use to connect to a blockchain, to send a transaction, to the right DEX in the right format. But I think because it's working with DEXs, it should also do some very blockchain and DEX specific things, like managing the wallets, managing a list of the tokens in the pools, and mapping symbols to addresses, for example. And the other thing I think you should do is basically manage a lot of complexity related to interacting with nodes, right? Because so right now it's pretty simple, but in the future, if there are more things like you want to rotate nodes, I think those should be done in Gateway and not so much in Hummingbot. Okay, all right, so let's move on. So the high level overview. So and I think we kind of went over this a bit more already, but yeah, ideally the reason to split the architectures, you never really want to do this. And honestly, I would say in the future we may try to move some of these functions from Gateway into Hummingbot, so there's more just that appear in Python. But if you do want to have something that's community based, where the community can contribute connectors into it, and you want to support like the long tail of both blockchains as well as DEXs, then I think you do want a separate TypeScript based database. I think it'd be different if we were concentrating on just like the top DEXs, or let's say Ethereum and Solana only. We could probably get away with Python right now, but I think the history of Hummingbot and even Gateway is that we try to standardize interactions across all connectors, all exchanges, and we try to support the long tail just as much as we probably support the top guys in any one exchange area. So that's because of that. That's why I think with Gateway, because the new standard should be very easy for a new DEX to just copy the existing templates that are already out there, and they can leverage kind of like the existing SDKs and kind of like copy the Jupyter one or the Uniswap one, and it should be very easy to add new connectors. Okay, so basically the role of Hummingbot here is actually not to have any kind of like, it should not need to know anything about how Gateway really works. So in other words, and this is actually one difference from how we did before, because before Hummingbot kind of like had to know exactly how Gateway worked, and so but this time around we've changed it. So instead we just set kind of like what Hummingbot's responsible for is simply interacting with Gateway, and it uses in Gateway will use the same kind of event system to track orders that it did before. And before there was like a separate way that Hummingbot handled Gateway orders, and it was outside of how it handled normal orders. Now every Gateway transaction, even wrapping or approving tokens, will be handled in the same transaction flow that Hummingbot uses. Okay, so yeah, the role of gateway here is really to be the blockchain bridge, providing interfaces to chains, providing the DEX connectors, managing the wallets, and then providing also services like default lists to map pools, basically names of trading pairs to pool addresses, and then token symbols to token symbols. In addition, Gateway also defines the actual schemas used. So, for example, we've defined a router schema. So that the router schema is basically what Uniswap router and Jupiter and 0x uses. But then there's a different schema for pools like AMMs, like that the Uniswap v2 pool uses, and separate one for clams that the Uniswap v3 pool uses, and so forth. But overall, each of these kind of connectors should expose operations like swapping, like adding and removing liquidity that are consistent with the base schemas for their respective types. So routers, AMM pools, and clan pools. So we can take a look at the gateway schema. It's probably better to look at the actual gateway code base alongside of it. So I'll just pull this here. I'll pull the core 2.8 branch. Pull that 1 second. Get that. Where's that? Is that file again? Do I lose it? Yeah, I think I lost the. This one. Here we go. Okay. So basically, in the source directory, there is a chains folder and these are the two chain connectors so far. So these chain connectors, what they do is they have a lot of the code that interacts with the libraries for the different chains. They handle sending transactions and also they expose routes, a standard set of routes that are basically for Ethereum, for example, there's balances. You can pull for a transaction status. You can wrap, you can unwrap, and so forth. So these now each of these routes is a file in the routes directory, and this Ethereum, all these routes. If you look at all these routes, for example, let's take a look at balances. Balances. This imports from this chain schema. Actually, here's one that integrates. So wrap, for example, integrates from schemas. So this schema, the Ethereum schema, is one that basically this is basically defining all the examples for the different routes as well as defining the schemas. But you can see that a lot of these routes here are basically using basically they're extending the main chain schema and adding the Ethereum specific information. So basically both Solana and Ethereum will have a schema, and the schema comes from this chain schema here. So right now, because we're kind of trying to make sure that this works really well for Ethereum and Solana, we're still trying to clean this up. But overall, this chain schema should be consistent and allow people to add different chains in the future. Similarly, there's three kind of types that Gateway supports now. There's router, AMM, and clam. Each of these have schemas here as well. And so, for example, the router schema exposes basically two types of routes. There's quote swap and there's execute swap. So for each route, quote swap has these required and optional endpoints, and here's a response that has, and then same for execute swap, quote execute, execute swap, quote, and execute swap response. Now, if you note here, one thing you note is that one change from before is all these swaps for all these requests now, the network is optional, and so is the wallet address. So, for example, if you look here, the execute swap route, the network and the wallet are optional, and that's because in new in 2.8 now we allow the user to define a default network for each chain and a default wallet address for each chain. And that's actually a route that is in the wallet ones. So you can basically set, in config, you can set the default network for a chain, and in wallet, there's a route here to add to add and set default wallets as well. So the reason for that is because that actually really simplifies the API schema. So if you're Hummingbot, you can just kind of set the default wallet, set default network, and then your commands can be much simpler. And so that change I'll show you later on has made it really simple to kind of use gateway commands to even execute simple swaps, to approve tokens, and basically handle transactions using the gateway command interface. You can also do so in scripts, but I think the command interface is an easy way to test it out initially. Okay, so let's move on. Just as an example, whoops, this is okay. This is not good. Mermaid text. Let me actually ask Claude to fix this while we're here. This didn't work. Okay, yeah, it's already doing that. Yeah, these Claude artifacts would be much easier if they can actually use proper JavaScript instead of having to recreate everything using kind of like HTML, CSS. But okay, it is what it is. We'll come back to that diagram later on. This is the downside of using AI tools to generate slides. You know, it's sometimes most times better than an intern, but not all the time. Okay, so here's the latest one. Let's use that instead of this version here. Anyway, so we talked about this, and okay, got it. Yeah, I think it's important to understand kind of how Hummingbot connects to Gateway. So we'll just spend a bit more time on this. So the way that Hummingbot works now, this is actually different from what it had in the future. Is in the past, Hummingbot would create a connector for every gateway DEX, and it was because Hummingbot, when you add a connector for a SEX, you add API keys for that SEX, and then so it's creating kind of like a connection to that SEX you can trade on. Now Gateway just operates differently because when you trade on a blockchain, your keys are for a specific blockchain, and typically you're using that wallet across different networks for that chain. So if I have an Ethereum wallet, I'm using that wallet on Ethereum mainnet, Base, but also for Avalanche, Pancakes, for BSC, and basically any chain that is EVM compatible. Similarly, the same thing for Solana as well. Right now, people are only doing mainnet, but there are going to be some SVM networks soon, layer 2s that people can trade wallets on. So overall, it's kind of like a wallet-based architecture, and that's kind of how we've designed it in the new version. So in the new version, Gateway is responsible for interacting, helping you manage your wallets, sending on different chains. But on the Hummingbot side, there's simply only kind of one Gateway connector. So whenever you send any transaction, it's going to pass through Gateway connector. It uses the client to handle HTTP requests to Gateway, but then after it sends the transaction, there's a new component called transaction monitor that will pull for the status, and it will update the order in the in-flight orders database, and it will emit events related to how that order is handled. So here overall is the overall transaction lifecycle. So the other thing we've done is integrate the command interface along with strategies and scripts. So you can just do a swap using the gateway swap command, in addition to using the swap function in a script or a strategy. So if you ran the gateway swap command, let's say you ran gateway swap, actually you would actually have to add the connector, so Uniswap, Uniswap or Jupiter here. But let's say you did Jupiter ETH, or sorry, Uniswap ETH USDC by 1. What it first does is Hummingbot will parse this command. It'll create the order ID right away, and will basically use the gateway connector and the gateway client to call this endpoint here on gateway. So gateway is another HTTP server that's running. It'll call the quote swap endpoint, and it'll basically fetch the response once it's done. So what gateway is going to do is it will basically take that response, take this request. It'll format it using the let's say it's Uniswap. It'll use the Jupiter or something. Use the Uniswap SDK to format that quote properly, so it knows how to fetch the quote from Uniswap, submit that transaction to the blockchain. Submit that to the Uniswap SDK, fetch it back, and then do that. But if this is an execute swap, then gateway would use the wallet address it has that's already stored to send it on the blockchain, and then send the response of the executed swap back to Hummingbot. So the flow that works here like this, I think this is a better illustration of the flow. User command happens. The quote is fetched from the Uniswap or the Jupiter API, and then the quote is displayed to the user in Hummingbot. The user confirms, and then the swap is executed through gateway on the blockchain. Hummingbot tracks the order, monitors the status, and then updates the order, and then emits the event to the user. So we'll see that in action pretty soon. But I want to just give you an overview of how that works today. So, all right. So let's cover these other kind of like more complex kind of things after we get the initial setup done. So let's go through and first set up Hummingbot and Gateway using this new version 2.0, 2.8 setup process, and then we'll actually go through the demo of how a swap works using Gateway. All right. So first, as I mentioned, there's these two code bases. There's Gateway. There's Hummingbot over here. Let me pull that up over here. So these are the two code bases that we're working with. And so first thing, we're going to install both of these over here. So let me pull up terminal. I've actually already installed it over here, but all I've done is I'll kind of like set up again. So basically, so you basically just want to, if you kind of like, if I have them scratch here, I would say you basically can just kind of like do git clone SSH or SH and kind of just clone it in like this, like that. And then so I'm not gonna do that because the Hummingbot already exists, so I already have it here. And then if I already have this branch, I would do like this, git checkout, like this, like that. So this will check out with the branch, and then I can pull to make sure that I have the latest branch over here. Okay, so this is up to date, and I can do the same thing over here in Gateway. I'm already on this branch, but I can check out core 2.8, and I can git pull origin core 2.8. All right, so now that I know that both of these branches are up to date, let me go ahead and run install for this. For Hummingbot, so I'm not going to do the Hummingbot install because this takes a while, but basically if you ran this install command, this would install the Hummingbot Conda environment. So Conda is the Python package manager that we use to manage the dependencies. So once you run install, it will install a Conda environment called Hummingbot, and then afterwards you have to activate that environment so your dependencies are available to the Python process you have. So so now you can I can also use this VS Code if I want. So if I go to Hummingbot here, I can go terminal. Let's see, view. So there's like Python interpreter. I can use the Hummingbot Hummingbot here, this Python environment. And so now, yeah, if I want to use the I can actually run the debugger and do other things from Hummingbot here because I have the same environment I have here. Okay, so obviously I should also mention this is a source installation method. If you're using Docker, which most people are, there's probably an easier way to do it. But here, because I'm still in development, I'm using source. So now that I have Hummingbot installed here, I can just start Hummingbot like this, and it will start Hummingbot. If it's your first time, you'll be asked to set a password because I've already have one. I can just go in like this. So it says Gateway's online. Interesting. Actually, this is probably an error because Gateway is not online, I think, unless I'm running Gateway. This one here. Yes, I don't think Gateway is actually online. So let me actually, there's probably something I need to fix here. So I do Gateway list. Actually, let's see how that works. I don't know how Gateway is. Huh, interesting. Wait a second. There's like a process running here. Yes, there's some old processes here killing. So yeah, let me kill the old processes. That's why it was running. So so yeah, I gotta make sure I clean that up properly. So yeah, so now let me start again. Okay. Oops. Yeah, I always forget to activate the content environment. Forget that. Sorry, so what I want to show you this is basically if you start Hummingbot on its own without starting Gateway, this is what you should see. So yeah, Gateway's offline, and this is totally fine normal behavior because many people use Hummingbot on its own to trade on sexes, and they're not using Hummingbot to trade on DEXs yet. But if you do want to install a Gateway, so yeah, you can say Gateway ping and say yeah, it's Gateway's offline. Now, when you do run Gateway, it should pick it up automatically. This is one of the things that, yeah, I want to make sure we don't break because this was actually working properly before. So let's try to make sure that we didn't break it. So, all right. So when you install Gateway, you should follow this kind of a similar process to Hummingbot and run the npm install command to install the dependencies. Npm is a package manager that's very similar to npm. You can just install like npm install -d pnpm, but it's a little better than npm because it's better at taking lots of complicated dependencies and minimizing the number of modules you have to install. All right, so now we got everything in place, and then afterwards you want to run build to build it. Okay, and this will compile the TypeScript into JavaScript so that we know what we can run. And now also new for the first time, we've added the setup script. So this was previously just Gateway setup, but now you can also run pnpm run setup, and this will help you configure Gateway by copying the default configuration templates for each chain, network, and DEX connector over to your conf directory. So what we're doing here is we're basically going to create this directory called conf here. So actually, let me show the TypeScript, the code base here. So this is Hummingbot. I'll open up Gateway. Here's Gateway. So Yeah, so basically, we're gonna. This is the old one, but we're basically gonna override this conf directory with the existing one from templates. And so this is, if you're new, this would basically. And so here, what we're gonna do is we'll basically tell Gateway, tell the installation process which files and which folders we want to override. So first, do we want to override the default Gateway config? This sets things like the log level, the port, so forth. So we'll do yes for that one. Set this default. Do we want to override the configs for each chain and network? So these are like the node modules and so forth for that. I'm actually going to say no here. Actually, I'll do yes. I'll show a demo, because this is probably something that a common change you'll have to make is configuring the node URL after you install Gateway. So yeah, I'll do that, and I'll show you how to configure that. Also, do you want to set the default configs for each DEX? These are things like the default slippage amount you use when you do a swap, and other DEX specific configurations. I'll copy that over. And then the next question is copying over the token network. We found that if there's too many in there, it makes the command really slow. So we've tried to have a curated set of like 5 to 10 tokens for each chain and network. But we've also added a token command that helps you add and remove tokens from the list. So we'll copy the default one for the tokens, and I'll also copy the list, the pool lists. So similarly for tokens, AMM pools, there might be different pools for each trading pair. These pools differ because there's different fee tier, like 0.3% or 0.05%, and they also might have other differences. Like I think there's a bin step difference for Meteora and so forth. Use it from a client like Hummingbot without having to kind of like find the pool address every single time. And then finally, one thing we can do here is we can link the client certificates. Before, this was a mandatory thing, so you had to link the client certificates, and that was because we wanted to make sure everyone ran Gateway securely. So if you're running it on a server that's public, because you're exposing your wallets, we want to keep it secure. However, it also complicated the process for folks that were just looking to set it up for demo purposes. So in the new version, by default, you're running Gateway in unencrypted mode, and then just putting it on port 15888 and communicating it with Hummingbot, and kind of like linking the client certs and running Gateway in secure mode is now kind of an option. We do highly encourage it for anyone that's running Gateway in production, especially if you're putting it on a server that's publicly available. However, it's not mandatory. So I'm not going to show it from the demo. I think it's actually easier just to keep it clean and just to run Gateway unencrypted and show you how that works. But it should be pretty easy for anyone to move it into encrypted mode by just linking to certs as before, and then turning on the there's a Gateway use SSL conf flag in Hummingbot that you can set to put it on. All right. So we got some more people watching now. 13 folks watching. Hopefully this number will increase over the coming weeks. I do think what we're doing with Hummingbot is pretty impressive, and I think especially now that we're kind of like really making sure the core APIs like Gateway and Hummingbot API are in place. I think it'll be much more kind of AI friendly than it was in the past, and I think like kind of these standardized API endpoints, good documentation that goes along with it, plus kind of like what some of these LLMs are capable of now are going to be really amazing. So yeah, so right now, but today, we're still kind of building that. So today, I just want to really show. So yeah, not going to link the client certs. So first, one update is just those items, and basically it'll copy over the templates from here into my actual configuration directory. So I'll proceed. So now I kind of have a clean setup, and so now I will run gateway, and now I could run gateway just like this, just by PMing a start like that. But instead, I'm going to run it with passphrase equals A. And the reason why I set a passphrase is A. If I want to use certs in Hummingbot, this has to be the same passphrase. But also B, this passphrase is important because if I add a wallet, I want to store that wallet in encrypted form. I don't want to just save the private key. So this passphrase is used to encrypt a wallet when you access it. It's also used to decrypt the wallet. So you want to make sure you're always running with passphrase, even if you're running it in dev mode, like I'm doing now, which is unencrypted. So yeah, so if it's dev, it's going to be running unencrypted without the dev flag, will be encrypted. So yeah, so now it's running, and the first thing you should do is now when gateway is running, is you should check in Hummingbot if gateway is online. And we do see that now Hummingbot has the gateway is online message, which means that gateway is now connected to Hummingbot. And before you had a complicated gateway generate certs command, plug the certs into gateway, and then run them both. And so that caused a lot of people with issues that they reported on Discord. So now I think this new method of just having it be kind of a setup by default should be easier. But again, this was an option of running it in secure mode. So let me do gateway ping, and I can see that the gateway ping command tells me that I am connected to gateway, and I have I'm connected to Ethereum and to Solana. Note that I'm only pulling it for one Ethereum network, even though there are many Ethereum networks available. So if I do gateway list, I can see the list of the networks available. And so there's many networks available, but I'm only pulling from mainnet. And the reason is because currently in the new version of gateway, we are letting the user define a default network. So that means that it'll just basically use that network every single time. And so you still can use other networks in your let's say your strategies. You can always pass in the wallet parameter, but if you don't pass in the wallet parameter into a route, it will use the default network for that chain. Similarly, after I add a wallet, even though gateway can maintain a list of wallets, you can also define a default wallet for each chain, and that simplifies things a lot, because if you run like gateway balance or gateway swap, you don't have to select the wallet every single time, just like you don't just select the network. Instead, it'll be much easier to kind of like just use that default network if you for default things, but you can always override them. Wow, streaming for 45 minutes. This is I think I'm getting better at kind of like actually not sounding like an idiot in these streams. So yeah. Anyway, but let's see. Okay. If you have any questions, drop in the YouTube chat. I see folks watching. Actually, yeah, folks watching. No one's chatting, but it's fine. This is usually for posterity. But yeah, hopefully those will be some good insights you guys can pull out of this. All right, so now let's move on to actually using gateway and to actually using it alongside Hummingbot. So as I mentioned before, we've added new commands into gateway. So if you do gateway -help, we can see the list of full commands. And so before, this ping command was called test connection. Now it's just ping. It shows you the default network, the RPC URL that you're using, and the latency of that connection. One thing before I proceed, note that when gateway is running on the default endpoint like this, you can also access the gateway directly in the documentation. So if we go to the, let's see, go to like this here, we can always go to localhost 1588-docs, and we can access the gateway endpoints directly just on like this using the Swagger API. So the nice part about using Fastify and I think type box for the types, is that this is automatically generated using the schemas for each chain. So before we had to update this and so it was hard to keep this documentation up to date. Now it's automatically generated. So anytime someone else adds a new connector, adds appropriate schema, adds examples, it'll already be populated here. So that's why we can go and look at, for example, the configs for each server. For the server, we can look at the configs for, let's say, the Ethereum mainnet network and other examples. We can also look at the configs for Ethereum, the Ethereum network, and so forth. So yeah, so definitely, I would say once you have Gateway running, definitely try this out, and definitely try the endpoints directly if you have any issues using them from Hummingbot. But we have tried to make sure they're possible for Hummingbot. So if you're using Hummingbot, it should be easier to use Gateway now. So for example, let's take a look at the configs. So let's look so we have Gateway ping, Gateway config. So let's take a look at the Solana config options. So note that we have a namespace called Solana, and we also have a namespace called Solana mainnet beta. So one is for the chain, and the other one is the configuration for the network. So what this allows you to do is you can define kind of network level things like the currency symbol. In the future, there may be future kind of Solana networks or other chains, but actually this is probably easier to show this in Ethereum, where it's easier to do. Where I say because we have the Ethereum configuration, which is the main one, but then you also have individual Ethereum networks. So in Gateway, any EVM chain is defined as an Ethereum network, and the reason is because you're using an Ethereum wallet to connect to them, and so it makes it much simpler to define them as networks rather than separate chains. So if we look at the base configuration, for example, the base configuration has the chain ID, the node URL, the currency symbol, and some other parameters that are native to Ethereum networks. But the BSC one, the Binance Smart Chain one, this one has similar configurations, but notice that the currency symbol here is BNB. So that lets the network define the native currency symbol that's used for gas, and also that's used for the wrap and the unwrap commands here. Yeah, swap it like it's hot. Yeah, that's right, Fading. Yeah, thanks for injecting some comments. As a preview, we're going to get to it, but we are going to be using this gateway swap command that will allow us to use Hummingbot on its own to basically interact with gateway, do swaps, and lay the foundation for kind of more kind of agentic type workflows in the future. Okay, but before we get to that, the first thing we need to do is change our configuration. And this is a very important step. And actually, I think we should probably add this part of the video to the documentation, because one of the things that people always ask us is, they're like, hey, I want to get my wallet, I want to get gateway balance, and they like, I can't get the balance for my Solana connectors. And so yeah, this is because I haven't added a wallet yet. I should probably handle that error better. But one of the main reasons why people have issues with Solana is because they're using the public Solana URL. Because the Solana blockchain is pretty heavy, it's hard for Solana, I guess, to maintain this public URL without rate limiting it severely. So if you're just using this main public one, all you can really do is fetch a balance. You can't really run a strategy for anything. So I highly recommend changing this URL to a private one. You can get a free one from QuickNode or ChainStack, GetBlock for Alchemy. There's a number of providers out there. But yeah, I think having a private node URL should be probably the first thing you configure once you set up Gateway. So let me show you how to do that. So first, get your private node URL. Let me copy mine. One sec. All right, so I got my Solana node over here, and so I will go into gateway, and I'll say gateway config update, and I'm gonna update the, oops, not the Ethereum Polygon one. I'm gonna update the Solana mainnet beta one, and note that we're defining the node URL on a network by network basis here. Okay, so it tells me I'll update the node URL configuration, and I'll paste in the URL for my my private node URL. So this was updated, but one thing I'm going to do is I want to make sure it's updated. This is actually from old. This is from that previous one I had before. So I want to make sure it's updated by running the restart command. And the restart command, this is a new one. This will restart gateway, and it'll push it on. Actually, you know, I think this is actually part of the issue. I bet this is actually part of the issue we had before with gateway. I probably need to fix that restart command, because I bet this is actually a different process of gateway that is calling. Yeah, I need to resolve this gateway restart command probably. But anyway, so let's assume that that gateway. I should probably not use that command until I actually get it fixed. But what it will do, it will basically kick off gateway, restart it, and it will make sure that the configuration change that you implemented will take effect. RPC URL for Solana. In the future, you can always just kind of stop the gateway server, start it again to make sure. But in the past, this was actually working well before, so I'll try to revert that configuration change thing to what we had in the past. But anyway, let's assume it works. Now we're using the new RPC URL. So now any request to gateway, especially on Solana, should be much faster. While we're at it, the default network for Ethereum, because for Ethereum we're using mainnet right now, but for mainnet, you know, we probably want to use a different chain because it'll be cheaper to experiment with on L2s. So let's update the Ethereum. So because now we're updating the namespace for the chain, not for the network. So we want to update the Ethereum chain network, the chain configs. And so there's two things we can configure here: the default network and the default wallet. So we want to do the default network. And so now the network, the new one we'll do is base. So now it's base. If we want to see the list, we can do gateway list to see the list of available networks. And so we can see that, yeah, so we have, here are the list of available networks for, they're kind of done by connector basis, but here are the ones available for Ethereum. All right, so now we can do, we can add a wallet. So we want to add a wallet. Note we can add a regular wallet or a hardware wallet. So first, let's add a regular wallet. And so, first we want to add a Solana wallet. And so I'm going to take my Solana private key, make sure I don't expose it, and then I'll paste it in here and to add my Solana wallet. Okay, so now we've added a Solana wallet, and by default, it's added that as the default wallet for the chain. Let me make sure it actually did that correctly. So let's see, in conf wallets Solana here, I should have this, and in conf chains Ethereum Solana.yaml, yep, I do in fact see that wallet address defined here. So we also see base here as well. Okay, so now we've added a Solana wallet. When I run gateway balance, it will fetch the tokens for that token. So before you had to add the token, you had to add those connector tokens command. You had to define the tokens you have to use on the Hummingbot side. Now that's not managed anymore by Hummingbot. Instead, there's a curated list of tokens for each network, and the user can add to those tokens using the token command. So, for example, let's say we want to see the list of tokens for Solana. Here's a list for mainnet beta, and these are the 11 tokens we have. If we want, we can also use the add command to add a token. So let's add a token for Solana right now. We'll add it to mainnet beta. Actually, so yeah, chain and network. Oh, okay, actually, I should probably remove this one, and you just use the default network. But for now, let's put in the network, and so we'll add a network token in. So let's add a token. So let's see, and this is important because we don't have. I mean, we only want to keep a few tokens in Gateway so that we can find tokens ahead of time. However, there's many tokens in Gateway. There's many tokens out there. And so we don't want to define the whole universe if we don't have to. So that's why we should the new goal is to try to make it easy for people to add tokens to the list if they want. So I think I can think of a token to add. You know, everyone's talking about the new pump ICO that recently happened. So we definitely want to track this token. So let's try to make sure we add the pump token to Gateway. So here's how you do that. So first, we want to add the token symbol over here. Okay, and then the name. So the name is just pump. The address we can get from here. And the decimals is, we can move here, which is 6. Okay, do I add this token? Yes. Okay. All right, so now what this has done is added a new entry into the Gateway tokens database. So note that if you run the setup process again, you probably want to exclude tokens if you've done this from the setup so that you don't override this. But right now in mainnet.json, we can see that we've added a new entry here for the pump token. And if we run Gateway balance, if we did have pump tokens, we could actually get it. So let's see, error getting balance. Oh, yeah, so yeah, this is because let's resolve this error by adding a Gateway wallet for Ethereum while we're at it. So let me get my Ethereum private key. So note that this wallet will be used for all Ethereum networks, including the non EVM ones like Base, like the non L2s, like the all all L1s like BSC and Avalanche. If I run Gateway balance, I'll see my balances for Base, for my Ethereum wallet, and the balances for my Solana wallet. Okay, so now I think we're ready. I think now we can actually start to do some swaps because we have the wallet set up. We've added a token. So now, yeah, let's go ahead and let's try to buy some pump. So we have, let's see, we have some Bonk, got some Sol, got some USDC. Price thing here, because if in regular Hummingbot you can see the values of your portfolio. The price would require another endpoint call, so it may need to be another command. But yeah, it would be nice to see the value of your portfolio here as well. Okay, so as I mentioned, yeah, so let's do a swap and let's try to buy some of the new pump token that we just added here with everything. So we just added, let's see, the pump token. Let's see, show Ethereum. I think like this. Okay. Oh, okay, got it. It's actually I need to fix it actually. Yeah, I still need to change all these endpoints to make sure that the network is removed from all of them. So in the future, you just need to say show Solana pump because it always use the default network and the default wallet in commands. All right, so yeah, let's do the swap. So it's been an hour. We still haven't done a swap yet. So let's actually do some swaps. So okay, so let's do swap. We'll use the Jupiter router, and let's actually we'll basically use the pump Sol market, and then we want to buy. Let's see how much is. Let's see how much is pump. Let's see. Actually, let's do Sol. Let's do Sol pump. Sol pump, and then we'll want to sell. Let's see. So how much Sol we have? We have 0.09 Sol. So let's sell a small amount, 0.01 Sol. And so in here, what we're going to do is this will get a quote from Gateway. So let's watch the logs again, and then we'll get a quote. Let's see. Token not found. Yes. This is because I need to do the restart thing better. But because we added the pump token, but we haven't actually done this. So let's restart Gateway. And this is actually what the restart command was intended to fix. So now let's try that again. Let's see. Get online. So now it's getting. See, now resolved the address correctly. It fetched the quote using the Jupiter router. And so under the hood, let's before we execute this transaction, let's actually let's execute it now. This is only 0.01 Sol, which is only about $1 or so. So this is just us buying $1 of pump. So let's try it and see if it works. It did not work. Okay, let's see why it did not work. So, but the fact that it did not work here is a good sign. Let's see. Did it work? Okay, yes. There's something about it that did not work. So, and we can verify this, I believe, if we look at our Solana. Yes. Okay. So did not work. There could have been a slippage issue. Could be a slippage. Could be something else. But let's try it again. It could be. Oh wow. What's going on here? Okay. Yeah. This is not. We don't need this one. Okay. Let's try it again. Let's try to sell another 0.1 pump. Okay. Let's try again. Let's see. Filled. Okay, so that one actually worked. The last one was probably because of the stale quote, but you can see I think before this part was a lot messier, because Hummingbot was not really tracking the gateway order. Now this swap, even when it's an error, it tracked the error, which was likely because it failed the simulation or something like that. This time around, it actually did. We see what happened here. We created this order when the user indicated yes over here. This is and then once the order was created, it was sent to Gateway. Gateway then basically and the way Gateway works is when you fetch the quote, Gateway will cache the quote coming from Jupiter for a couple minutes, and then it will, when you execute, you just need to kind of execute this quote ID, and it will basically execute that quote, because a quote is usually a larger object that includes the route it might be using, and so all the router endpoints have this concept of a quote that you're fetching from either the Jupiter SDK or the Uniswap SDK. It's stored, and then once you execute, it's going to execute that quote. For Solana, the way that Solana works is that you send the transaction to the node. You hope that a validator picks it up, but you don't know that it does until there's confirmation. So unlike Ethereum, where you send the transaction and you kind of like you basically wait for it to appear in a block, in Solana, you can send the transaction. If you get confirmation from the validator, then if so, then it's confirmed. If not, that hash is probably it's probably expired. And what you want to do is you want to generate a new transaction and send it. So currently, we used to kind of like try to handle this. Now the new design is to not handle this at all and simply just try to send the transaction, log what happens on the Hummingbot side, whether it's an error or whether it's a successful trade, and let the user then dictate whether to resend that transaction using a higher fee or not. So this is honestly still a bit of a work in progress, but I'm hopeful that by simplifying the role of gateway here, it's simply just going to send the transaction for you and log in Hummingbot what happened. It will introduce more kind of like control over to users. Before it was a black box. It was like you send it. It was like, sometimes it failed, sometimes succeeded. It was really hard for, I think, strategy designers to understand exactly what's happening at the blockchain level and be able to control how it works. The new architecture should be simpler. You just define the default fees for each connector, and then you can send using those default fees. But the user can override those with higher fee parameters if you need to get a transaction through if the first one failed. So just as an example of that, for example, if you look at the gateway endpoints for Jupiter, the one that we were just using, the Jupiter connector, basically there's three endpoints. There's quote swap, execute quote, execute swap, execute quote, and execute swap. So when you quote a swap, it's gonna basically fetch the a quote, and you can see some here are the required options, which are standard for every quote swap endpoint. So quote swap is shared by every connector, even the AMM and the CLAM connectors. But here are the gateway specific ones, and this one comes from the gateway config. So once we get this quote, this is cached using this quote ID, and if we wanted to, we can execute that quote using the execute quote by just passing in that quote ID. Notice that we can define these settings here, which are gateway specific. These are gateway specific fee settings. By default, these are set in the gateway configs, but if you wanted to, you could override these and increase the max fee or lower the priority level if you want. So yeah, so that's how that. So we just did a successful swap. We just bought some pump. So now when we do gateway balance, we should see. Let's see. Yeah. So now we see some pump tokens in our account here. So so we can also trade with these tokens using the AMMs as well. Actually, I haven't fully tested this, but I think I should. So let's go through how you would actually use this as kind of like actually maybe next. I'll probably wait till next week. Next week I'll kind of go through and show you how you can interact. Because we have basically 0x, Uniswap, and Jupiter are routers, but then we also have Meteor, Radium, and Uniswap, which are AMMs. So for the AMMs, you can do a swap, but you can also do more. So for example, for Uniswap, the router endpoints are quote swap, execute quote, and execute swap, the same as Jupiter. But for the AMMs, you can get info on a particular pool, on a position. The same, you can do a quote swap, you can execute swap, but you can also quote liquidity, add liquidity, and remove liquidity. So this way this works is that you can define the pool address, but you shouldn't have to, because this is actually wrong. You should only need to define the base token and the quote token, and it will look up the address in the pool list. So that's why in the future, all of the endpoints, it will be standardized, and you can, if you put in the pool address, it will use the pool address. But if you don't, it will try to use the base token and the quote token, look it up in the default pool list, and use that pool. And we'll try to add some of the popular the main pools addresses that are out there for like Sol USDC or for like WETH USDC on Uniswap before version 2.8 out, so you can kind of just test this more easily. But the idea is that yeah, if you're using from Hummingbot, you should be able to use it almost like a plug and play, and you shouldn't need to kind of worry about all of these blockchain specifics because they're encoded as defaults at the gateway level. Okay, so going back to Hummingbot, I want to just close maybe with like just an illustration of when we did this swap here. Actually, we'll do another one. Actually, before we do that, let me do a few approve and wraps to show you that this same architecture is used not just for swaps, but also for wrapping and proving tokens as well. So, for example, let's check our balances for Ethereum. This is on the base network. So we have some ETH and we have some USDC. Okay, so actually here. Yeah, we also have WETH as well. I don't know why we don't show our WETH, but yeah, we can actually show the WETH and USDC like this. Yeah. So sometimes actually, I know why. Sometimes I know why actually. I know. So the reason why this happens, can anyone guess? Can anyone guess why? Let's see. Actually, why is this? Why am I not seeing? Sometimes I'm seeing, because like right now the token list for gateway, the token show. So right now this is the gateway token list. Yeah, Jesus Christ, list. Yeah, so here there's only 8 tokens for gateway, but right now when I fetch the balance, I'm only fetching. Yeah, I'm not getting all of the tokens. And so this is probably an error that I can handle better. So by the way, maybe one question. Let me answer from Stanislav. Stanislav asks, is it possible to have a double spend if we recreate a new transaction and send it? I would say that is possible. It is. I would say it is possible to introduce that. Would be more of like a bug if that happened. The reason that it shouldn't be possible here is because we're only sending one request to Gateway, right? We're sending one request to create this order. Gateway stateless, so it doesn't know anything about previous orders. It'll just take the order it's been given and send it along and give you the response. So it's very possible to kind of accidentally send 2 requests. So that's why I would say, but if you send the same request, I think what you're referring to is probably the transaction polling. It is not possible to have a double spend there, and the reason is because when you send that transaction, there's a specific signature attached to the transaction, and so what you're trying for is really you're sending the same signature with your transaction object, and you're saying, hasn't been picked up yet. If not, use this new version. But even if you replaced it with a new hash and you send it again, the reason it won't override is because anyway, I don't really know the details, but Solana I've never seen it happen in Solana. So I think it's something they try to prevent. Okay, so the reason this happened, I believe, is because I'm still using the default list or the node for Ethereum base, because this one here, this mainnet.base.org, just like the one from for Solana, is not very good, and let's see, it's hard to see it from the latency. This is 185 milliseconds, but I see an issue. I think is when you're trying to fetch lots of things, like lots of tokens, it only respond to 1 or 2 requests instead of all requests. So before we move on, let me also replace the let me get my base node URL here, and we'll place that here. Okay, and then I'm gonna restart gateway manually as I did before to make sure that that configuration is activated. And then when I run gateway ping here, I should see that the new one is now active. So there's a higher latency, but I bet that if I run gateway balance, I should see all the tokens now. Oh, got even fewer tokens. Okay. Yeah, there's definitely like an issue with getting. That's here. Interesting. Yeah, actually, looks like there's actually an issue here. Yeah, I may need to actually see what's going on instead of. Yeah, I think I'm actually doing something wrong on this side. That's interesting. Yeah. Yep. Oh, okay. Well, that makes things a little bit more difficult. Let's see. Oh, this is working earlier. I don't know why this is working now, unfortunately. Base. Yeah. Yeah. Wait. Okay. Let me actually go back to the node URL that I had before. So let's see. Yeah, huh. Wait, what? Ah, okay, got it. Yes, this is the error. So yeah, actually, I should fix this error next time. But when I restarted Gateway, when I had Gateway wallets already, I need to. Now they're not set as defaults anymore, so I need to actually set defaults. I should make this automatic next time if their wallets exist. Okay. All right. So now when I do gateway balance, I should see them. Okay. So now it's working properly. I don't know why it wasn't working properly before. Actually, it must be that it must have been that it must have been the node URL I was using earlier. But anyway, okay. So now we actually do see our balances. But what I actually want to show, this is actually the main point of this, is I want to use the wrap command. Actually, let me use the unwrap command first. I'm going to use the unwrap command, and I'm going to unwrap. Let's look at the help for this first. So the unwrap command just is very simple. It will take the amount, and it will unwrap the amount of the native token on the default network you're on. Wrapping and approvals and allowances only apply to Ethereum. So this is really only for Ethereum networks. So if you wanted to change your network you're on, you have to change the default network from base to something else. But right now, what we're gonna do is we'll just change some of the WETH to ETH and back and forth. Okay, so let's just wrap. We'll unwrap 0.01 WETH into ETH. Okay, done. So what happened was, now when we run gateway balance, we can see that we have, if it actually showed, okay, this will force it to show the WETH and USDC. So now we can see that we have 0.01 WETH and 0.01 ETH. This is helpful because when you trade on DEXs, DEX will kind of do this under the hood for you, but you can't really use ETH as a token. You can only use it as a gas currency. So when you want to use it as a token to, let's say, as a pair on Uniswap, you really have to convert it to WETH. So when this is a pretty low fee transaction, but it is a transaction on the blockchain. So in the philosophy of Hummingbot and Gateway is to provide the users with as much control as possible. So now both approve, wrap, and unwrap are transactions that you can call from the command line. And these are also in scripts as well. So there's also a script you can run to basically do the same thing. So now both scripts, strategies, and in these kind of commands use the same interface to send transactions and monitor them and make sure they are confirmed. So let's do the same thing with the wrap command. We can now that we actually want to only keep the ETH that we use. Because this is base, we don't need that much ETH for transactions, so we can wrap 0.1 and just keep a very small amount of ETH and keep the rest in WETH. So right now we're still using the trade types. So that's why this is buy order. That's why this is AMM swap buy order. We actually might use kind of like more expressive and descriptive orders in the future in trade types, but right now we want to make sure it's working. So before we add any new types, we're trying to make sure the system works properly. So and finally, approve and allowance. Approve also flows through the same model. So for example, let's say I want to see what allowances I have for these different connectors. So let's say for 0x router, let's look at my token allowances for this for what I have. Actually, this route may not be working. I probably need to check if this route is working. It is working. Okay, so all these routes they probably do something crazy here with the allowances. So let me check Uniswap router. I think not all my allowances are probably there for Uniswap router. Actually, I think they approved all these guys, right? I think I'm doing a lot of testing here. So okay, yeah, let's do. I know one I haven't done, which is allowance for I think the AMM. I don't think I approved all these guys. This is actually starting to be slow here. This is actually one reason I was using the different the node URL. But yeah, it seemed like there's some issues with the other node URL using. Maybe I tried using. Oh, I know what I was doing. I know what I was doing. I was actually using the wrong node URL. I was actually using a mainnet one when I should have been using the base one. Let me actually use the right one, and actually we'll have better success. Okay, actually, so time out. So yeah, so this is the issue with doing demos. You have to make sure you're using the right information or add better error handling into your software. So let me update the base URL. This will actually work better, I believe. Maybe start gateway here. Yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah, so now we should see this work much better. Before, the problem I was having was I was using a mainnet node instead of a base node, and so that's why I was getting the ETH balance, but it wasn't getting any of the other tokens because it was basically using the wrong addresses. All right, so now let's go ahead and do an approve. So let's first check our allowance for gateway AMM, and this will tell us for the tokens that are base token list, which ones are approved and not approved. So this is basically, can we actually swap with this token or not using this DEX. So let's go ahead and prove it. So let's go ahead and prove for Uniswap USDT. Actually, let's do this one. Let's do virtual since it's a more fun one. It's probably one that we're more likely to be trading. So let's go ahead and approve virtual. And this approving, just like wrapping and unwrapping, uses the order tracker. It logs the transaction and monitors it. And so now it's filled. So now we know it's filled. Now if we check out balance again, we should see that virtual is now approved. So so we can also do a swap. And actually, I haven't fully tested swaps on Uniswap yet, so I'm not going to do that. I actually don't. I'm not sure. I'm not confident it's going to work. So I'm not going to test that right now. But before I end, let me summarize kind of how this new kind of a model differs from the old model and some of the advantages that it offers. So let's go back here and we'll kind of go through. Actually, let me do the swap again. Let me round things out, and I will check my SOL balance, and let's actually sell that pump token that we bought earlier, and so we can see another example of how we can do the swap easily in Gateway like this. Oh, actually, and before we do that, let me do one thing here, which is I think yeah, this is probably appropriate for pump, but I think, yeah, we probably want to use, let's say, we may want to use a higher or lower slippage setting. So if you did want to, you could change the Jupyter router config slippage setting by doing this. Let's say by update Jupyter. And so we may want to use a higher or lower slippage percentage. So here, I'm actually going to use a lower one. I'm going to use 0.5 instead of 1%. And this should give us, this will lower the probability that a transaction succeeds, but it should allow us to save money on fees. So actually, let me do that. I'm actually going to do that the other way around. So I'm going to do that slippage percentage, and actually let me X out of here, and then I'll do that. I'll do 2% actually, because I think for kind of fast moving tokens like pump, that's actually one reason why I think that first transaction failed. We want a higher slippage in order to make sure we can land transactions. So let's first get the quote for selling pump. So actually, I should mention there's an interactive mode here. So if you just do gateway swap like this, I can do maybe do interactive mode, but I can also do the other mode where I just put in a command line. So I think I'm gonna trade all of it. I think I'm like 400 or something like that. Actually, I'll trade a little bit less, 200, and then I want to. Oops, this is actually wrong. So let me X out. So you can also do Control X and exit. Whoops. That was actually not. That was not good. I did something wrong there. Okay, let's do that over again. So we'll do gateway swap. I won't do interactive. I'll just do it this way. Pump SOL sell, and I think I have like 400. I'll sell 200 of it. So this tells me that, yeah, I'll get 2 pump. With slippage 2%. This actually should be 2% here as well. I'm not sure why this is 1%. But then, yeah, we'll basically, if the swap succeeds, we'll basically send 200 pump and receive this amount of SOL, which is a very small amount of SOL, and with slippage, possibly a small amount. So let's go ahead and send that. Oops. Okay, let's do that again. So this will fetch a new quote, and we'll send it. Let's see if that works. Let's see. Okay, that one did not work. Okay, and why did it not work? Yes. It did not work because somehow, yeah, we must have updated our networks, and it looks like we're using we're back using the default endpoint again for Solana. So yeah, one thing I need to make sure is I'm trying to make sure that this doesn't get overridden, but anytime you see this 2-minute request error, it's because the node isn't responsive. So let me go ahead and add that back and restart gateway, and we should be able to go once we update the node. So Solana mainnet beta node URL. Okay, and then let's restart here. All right, so now let's make sure we're using the right one. Okay, so now let's do that swap again. Do that swap. Okay, swapping. So now we're creating the order, and there you go. We did the swap. We received. Let's actually check this swap on the chain to see what actually happened. To do that, we can just select this transaction hash. Let me be able to select it. Okay, and then now let's go ahead and take a look at that transaction in the ledger. So this is the actual transaction itself. We swapped 200 pump for a small amount of SOL. So as you can see, the amount here that we got was actually very close to the price. It was actually even better than the price here. And so the slippage is kind of like the minimum that you'll get. But this transaction, yeah, we actually got better. So I think that yeah, I think that the ability to kind of automate swaps like this, I think, to do so in the command line, I think will be a really helpful feature forward. So this will be in 2.8, and I think the really what we're trying to do is allow people to add different connectors in here. So you can trade on Jupiter, you can trade on Radium, and it allows kind of like different DEXs to add themselves. And now with the same interface, people can trade on all of those DEXs. But of course, with Hummingbot, the purpose of Hummingbot is to be able to automate this trading. And so we can also try to use some of the demo scripts that are automating the same things that these commands are doing. Actually, yeah, so there's a couple more here, but yeah, this just to round things out here. Yeah, but basically the rest of this is kind of just showing kind of how this works here. Yeah, I think we already did this. So we don't need to show this. Actually, I'll cover the key takeaways at the very end. But let me just make sure that we know what was I going to do. Oh, yeah, how we can I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, how we can run the scripts from Gateway. So I asked Claude before this demo to create a couple of simple scripts that demo operations using this. So this is basically how you can use a demo to do this. So this is an unwrap amount. So yeah, this is a good one. So let's actually do this swap one. Actually, let's only do the wrap one. So actually, I should probably make this simple. Yeah, actually, let me do this one here, where it's wrapping. Actually, let me change these to wrapping. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I'll just do this one here for the. I'll just do the wrap one, and then we'll just do that one here. Okay, so let's try this. And so this one here, let's see, gateway balance. Okay. I'll unwrap first. I haven't actually tried these yet, so please bear with me. I should probably try these beforehand. But yeah, let me unwrap a small amount of ETH here. Okay, so now unwrapped. So now let me try writing the script, which should basically automate the wrap command and wrap a small amount here. Oops. Start script. This is simple gateway calls. Invalid strategy. This should be a script. Okay, got it. Yeah. So actually, I probably won't fix it now. Because let's see. Actually, let me give it a quick shot. I'll try having Claude fix this. It's been very simple, basic. Okay. I got it. Yeah, actually, I need to rewrite these because this should not be importing the application. This should be actually just using. You should just use the gateway connector to wrap these transactions. So I actually need to. Sorry. And script shouldn't be loading Hummingbot app. It should use gateway connector. So yes, I have a bit of work to make sure these scripts are working properly using the same architecture. But I think that the difference here, I kind of want to reiterate kind of the difference between this and the architecture, is really that it's really the same flow that you use for commands and for strategies. And using the gateway connector, really just like a regular Hummingbot connector. The role of the connector is to make sure it can process the order or the transaction according to the specifications of that exchange or of that blockchain. But Hummingbot, because it's going to use the same flow to track that transaction, to log it in the database, it should work more similarly to other Hummingbot connectors in the future. So I think we're not quite done yet. As you can see, still got to add the demo scripts that show you how you can use both the script and a command and kind of do the same things. And then we also need to create documentation for how people can kind of add new DEX connectors, new chains, and so forth. But I think the foundation is already there, and I'm glad that we kind of made that transition from previous model to the new one, because I think it's much more flexible and extensible than what we had before. So I'm adding. I should hopefully let's see. Yeah, here's better. This looks better. There's more of a configuration. Yeah, this is actually using gateway connector now. Okay, this looks better. But I probably need to do more testing. So I think next week, what I'll do is I'll kind of round out this series by I'll try to test all the add liquidity endpoints. I'll create some add liquidity scripts, and then we can basically walk through how this new interface can be used for basic swaps in the command line, like we just showed you, but also we can automate more powerful strategies that are doing something with LP positions or doing arbitrage or other things like that. But I think it's important to start with the basics. So now we have the same interface for everything. So we can even use strategies that are automating wrapping and approving operations if, let's say, the user doesn't have them already, and then we can automate more for the user. But with Gateway, we want to kind of have very simple endpoints that are each doing one thing, and then allow Hummingbot to design higher level strategies that are combining those endpoints together. So I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. I think today we basically covered. Let's see, is there anything else in this review, this deck? So we kind of covered these things here, and maybe as one final ending note, we started the process of trying to improve Gateway. We got it approved in a new connector proposal back, I believe, in January, February, and it's really been a really long road to get here. The old architecture, it was hard to untangle But now that it's mostly done, I think the new solution should be much better than what we had before. So starting 2.8, we will allow new connectors from the previous model to be added. So to be able to add connectors like PancakeSwap, Curve, Balancer, and Orca. This will, and I think we don't want developers to start yet because the architecture for Gateway 2.8 is still in flux. But as soon as it's launched, probably in the middle of August, I think connectors can be submitted for those legacy models as well, and hopefully we'll get all those connectors updated to this new standard. So yeah, so that's pretty much about it. I wanted to thank everyone for joining today. I think yeah, hopefully this is just it's still a work in progress. So I want to just give everyone a quick show of exactly what's going on right now. If you want to try it out, I encourage you to try out the branches of each individual repository. So there's actually a pull request, I believe, here with the latest in 2.8, I think, somewhere here. Yeah, anyway, there's a 2.8 branch. Here we go. This 2.8 branch here in Hummingbot, and there's also a pull request here with the branch. Originally, we were going to put the MCP server for Gateway here, but I think we're actually going to separate the MCP server out of Gateway and have a separate repo for MCP because that way that server can utilize both Gateway as well as Hummingbot API and provide a better experience for the user. So yeah, I'll probably be removing the MCP stuff out of here, and instead we'll be prototyping that separately in the MCP repo. All right, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I think this was we're getting better at kind of trying to do these live streams and trying to keep them, I guess like not too much like overhead. But hopefully, hopefully we're creating something that people can actually will want to watch. So I think this time around, I think that hopefully you understand how the new gateway architecture works. You can use it, basically as a command line, kind of like a bot almost, and you can use it for swapping, and later on for creating more kind of sophisticated arbitrage and LP scripts. So yeah, that's what we'll cover next week. We'll try to create some demo scripts. I think that if you have some strategy ideas you want me to create, you can probably bring them next week, and I'll try to create the simple. I want to start with very simple strategies, like if you wanted to, let's say, simulate a limit order on AMM DEX, can we create a simple script that does that? So I kind of want to start there and gradually ramp up the complexity of the strategy that people can create using Gateway. Okay, well, thanks everyone, and I'll see you next week.